Welcome back. You are watching our special broadcast. Donald Trump's swearing-in ceremony is taking place. The incoming president has not changed his stance on H-1B visas, stressing the need for skilled workers in the nation. But what are the other key aspects India needs to keep in mind about Trump's second stint in the White House? First, the Indian rupee continued to take a plunge after Trump was elected to power. The rupee has depreciated as much as 3% in the past few weeks. However, analysts have said the impact of Trump's presidency on the local currency is likely to be short-lived, and rupee could adjust post the initial shock of early days. Second, Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on emerging as well as developing markets. Trump has issued statements indicating higher duties on key exporting nations, including India, which he termed as a tariff abuser. We're now joined by Harshvardhan Shringla, former Foreign Secretary and former Indian Ambassador to the United States. Ambassador Shringla, thank you very much for joining us on the program. At the Nankiwala Memorial Lecture, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said that India has been injecting a sense of realism in ties with the United States. And today, the world order is on the cusp of a lot of change. There is also a lot of anxiety among countries, but India need not be so worried because we've not been very invested in the current order. Give us a sense of how India has tried to keep its foreign policy flexible, open-minded with regard to the United States, and what are we likely to see in the first few months of the Trump presidency vis-a-vis India?
So, well, as we go into a Trump 2.0 era, I think we have to keep in mind that our foreign policy has kept the India-US relationship at a very, very important, I would say, focus area. We have strengthened that relationship with successive presidencies over the last 10 years, decade or more. We have seen a very strong connect, between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump in his first term of office. There's been a lot of progress during that period of time. But we've also seen progress during the Biden administration. And I think what we would probably want to, or we would probably see in a Trump 2.0 is a continuation of a close strategic partnership, what we call a global comprehensive strategic partnership with the United States. Now, of course, India's foreign policy, as you correctly mentioned, and as our External Affairs Minister pointed out, is that we have been engaged with parties across the board. We have links not only with close links with the Quad and the G7, but also with the BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I think, straddle that ideological space between North and South and East and West. At the same time, we've maintained a certain level of strategic autonomy where your national interests come before any other interests. And from that point of view, I think we took a principled position in the Ukraine conflict that we believe that it is dialogue and diplomacy that should lead to peace and not conflict. And conflict is not a way to achieve it. And Prime Minister Modi also said this is not an era of war. And I think this does, to a large extent, come within what President Trump is trying to do in terms of bringing an end to wars. I think he's already been successful in bringing the Middle East conflict into a ceasefire. The Israel-Gaza ceasefire was quite commendable in that, from the point of view that Trump had made it clear that they would be held to pay if that was not, coming through before he took over as the 47th president. At the same time, I think his focus will be on the Ukraine conflict, where Prime Minister Modi has already worked to try and achieve some sort of a ceasefire and some sort of a settlement that would enable the two warring parties to come to some, a cessation of conflict. And so our policies do dovetail with President Trump's policies. And of course, there are a lot of opportunities as we get on to a Trump 2.0. From a strategic perspective, the focus should be much more on the Indo-Pacific than on the European theater. We do believe that there'll be a lot of opportunities to increase our collaboration with the US in strategic considerations. But at the same time, you've seen that we have worked out some sort of agreement with China on dealing with our western border with that country in the Ladakh sector. And hopefully that should also lead to some sort of slow but steady, I would say, normalization over a period of time, if all goes well. So from every perspective, I think we have played our cards correctly. We have managed this very, I would say, fast-changing geostrategic and geopolitical environment, and we have come out, relatively unscathed compared to countries
Right.
across the world.
Okay. Sir, I'd like to ask you about the possibility of an early Trump visit. Now, we have been reading reports, in fact, this came out in PTI some time back, that Trump has been discussing a possible India visit with his advisors. But he's likely to want to visit Beijing first. Now, what we're reading is that when External Affairs Minister Jaishankar visited the United States in December around Christmas, there were some early conversations about Trump's India visit. Do you expect him to come for the Quad summit sometime this year? Could the Trump visit be during this spring or later in the year? How do you think?
Well, it is India's turn to host the Quad summit. We've had several summits under the Biden presidency, and if we host a summit this year, then of course we would expect to have President Trump as a part of that summit. But whether President Trump's visit will be a standalone visit, whether it will be part of the Quad, or whether that visit will be early on in his presidency or after a certain amount of time, it's not clear. I think there is definitely some conversation about his coming to India. I'm sure there is also some conversation about the Prime Minister's visit to the United States. From a certain point of view, it was Trump who came last to India. It was in February 2020, just before the COVID pandemic took over. And you would remember that he had a very significant visit in which, the Namaste Trump event saw a lack of people in that stadium in Ahmedabad. And I think it was a great event for him. It was a great memory for him, if I recall. And also, I think it was a stamp of the bonhomie and the level that our relationship had attained under Trump and Prime Minister Modi. So I think he will have carried good memories. He will look to come back to India at as an important, and engage India as an important partner. And I think whether it is, Prime Minister Modi going to the United States or President Trump coming to India, a high-level exchange of visits early on, in my view, is something that is likely and something that should happen. And certainly, I think that would determine how our relationship will be carried forward in the next few years.
Do you expect pharmaceuticals, IT, textiles to face higher tariffs under the Trump administration? Do you think these sectors should potentially gear up for a higher customs regime?
Well, Trump has, periodically articulated the fact that India's tariffs are high and that he'd like to see more reciprocal, tariffs between our two countries. This is not new. We had that in the first Trump presidency. I was ambassador there, when we were negotiating a free trade agreement that would give greater market access to both countries. And I think it is important for us to preempt discussions in that area by taking certain steps, including resuming negotiations on the partial free trade agreement where we left off. We need to also look at how we can boost bilateral trade on both sides. Give greater market access. Look at some openings in various areas. But then coming back to your question, I think, look, Trump has other priorities. If our trade surplus with the United States is in the range of some $60 billion, China's is $300 or $350 billion. So he's got bigger fish to fry, as they say, and he would definitely start with enhanced tariffs on China. And in that case, of course, it opens up other possibilities for us that we could certainly capitalize on. At the same time, there could be some level of enhancements of tariffs from the Trump 2.0 team. We have to be prepared for all eventualities. As I said, I would say that as someone with the experience of dealing with the United States, especially the Trump presidency, I would think that preempting negotiations is a better way. Taking the discussion to them and enhancing our engagement with Trump 2.0 in every manner possible, whether it's immigration, whether it is trade and tariffs, whether it's energy and oil and gas or people-to-people contacts, whichever level of exchanges that we have with the United States, we need to take that discussion early on and preempt any actions that would be make that situation more difficult for both sides.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Shringla, for joining us with your view on what Trump 2.0 may herald for India-US ties. It's always a pleasure having you here on CNBC TV 18.
Thank you, Parikshit.
That's all the time we had on this special broadcast. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.